Whatever. I'm trying it. Let's see. This is for you, Saturn Dusk. If you're out there, wherever you may be, this one's for you. All right. Guess we'll see how this goes. How's everybody doing? And by everybody, I mean nobody. Saturn Dusk, what do you mean by there it goes again now? There what goes again? Hello, Isabella. You haven't seen episode 3 yet? I have the green and black screen issue. What's the green and black screen issue? I don't know of such an issue. Oh, hello, everybody. Oh, what's up, Childish Landino? Childish, you and I were the ones talking on Twitter this morning, right? I'm honestly, and I don't, like, some people would say this, I think, condescendingly. I really don't mean this, if this was you I was talking to. I really wish that I also was not so hung up on continuity. I actually don't know why it bothers me so much, but it really bugs me. And I hate it because this is not the first thing that it's impacted my enjoyment of. I really hate that. So if that is you, man, I really wish I could just get over myself, because it really bugs me. How's everybody doing? I have you're waiting to binge. I don't blame you. Waiting to binge, that's all good with me. The menus work, the TV works, other apps. It's just the one episode. Have you tried to watch it maybe on a different device, Hunter? Maybe a different device would work. What's up, Valerie? Hey, thank you very much for tuning in. Got right to the part where you were talking about 54 before you went live. Yes, okay. Well, there you go. There you go, Childish. I hope my video gives some better explanation on what was bugging me so much, because it's not just that they changed the position of Godzilla that annoyed me so much. It was that it's just so amateur, the writing, I felt. Now, I want to be clear. I actually really liked episode 3 of Monarch Legacy of Monsters. I really enjoyed the episode as a whole. I just felt that it was so sloppy from a MonsterVerse perspective. And I guess maybe this is just going to be... I'm curious to hear what you people in the chat feel about this. I'm really curious to hear what you guys think. Please let me know. Please comment and let me know what you guys are feeling about the MonsterVerse as a whole. But I felt like up until recently, I was on board with the MonsterVerse. Up until this year. And unfortunately, whether it be -1 putting things in perspective for me, or I think really it was something else kind of broke it for me, I'm really burnt out with the treatment of the MonsterVerse. Not with the MonsterVerse itself, because I think there's still tons of potential for the MonsterVerse. I think the MonsterVerse has more potential than almost any other currently ongoing cinematic universe, or really under any other ongoing franchise. But this year, the MonsterVerse, I'm really disappointed in where it's gone since King of the Monsters. And I know I'm a guy that likes Godzilla vs. Kong, but I can admit that as an entry in a cinematic universe, it's a very poor one. And I feel that the MonsterVerse as a whole has really dropped the ball when it comes to being an interconnected movie series. I feel like each individual entry is fine, but when you put them together, the pieces of the puzzle don't fit. And that was an issue ever since Kong Skull Island. Really ever since Godzilla Awakening, but the comic books literally have never mattered. Younger me was naive enough to think they did. If I was to go back in time to 2019 when I was super hyped for Godzilla Awakening, I'd just sit myself down and say, hey man, you can enjoy it, but it doesn't matter. Because it doesn't. And as much as Legendary will tell you that this other stuff matters, it doesn't. The Skull Island anime doesn't even matter. That's what's so annoying to me, is the way that Legendary isn't being upfront about what matters and what doesn't. But also, I just feel like the world building in the MonsterVerse has always been a little odd. Like in Godzilla 1954, in Godzilla 2014, Serizawa tells us Monarch is founded in 1954. Not the biggest deal ever, but in Kong Skull Island, we play the semantics game to say that Monarch was around since 1945, and in 1954 it became its own division, and that's when it went international, and that's also when it branched away from the military. Now, Monarch Legacy of Monsters, that could still technically be the case, but the show kind of presents it as if it was a scientific organization first, military second, which is the opposite of what we know is the truth, which is another thing that kind of bugged me. But I think, honestly, the thing that broke me on the MonsterVerse as of late was the Skull Island anime. I thought was such a horribly executed sequel to the MonsterVerse. I mean, as far as an individual King Kong product, it was fine. I think it was okay. There was some episodes I really enjoyed. There were some that really weren't for me. And episode 7, that's the one that everybody was hyping up as the greatest episode. And then I watched it and I thought it was really bad. I thought that as a King Kong story, it was solid. But as a part of the MonsterVerse, I thought it really wasn't good. And the longer the MonsterVerse has sat with me, the more I've started to dislike the world building in Godzilla vs. Kong, a movie that I still enjoy. But it's just little things in that movie that started to add up after that Skull Island anime that really made me bitter on the interconnective tissue of the MonsterVerse. So when you get to Monarch Legacy of Monsters, a show which I am enjoying as a show, I have the same feeling where as a show it's really solid, but as an entry in the MonsterVerse, the puzzle pieces don't fit together, and it's annoying because I can do better. Me, just some random guy, I can do better. And it's annoying that they don't hire people who can do better. Because it's not big issues. Like, it's little things that you just got to stomp out, and you can still tell the stories you want to tell. In fact, and I'm curious to hear what you guys think about this as well, I've re-edited 3 sequences from Monarch Legacy of Monsters just for fun, just to see if I could, kind of to challenge myself as an editor. And I feel like I've come up with a more compelling story for both the Golden Gate Bridge sequence and now the new 1954 sequence, Castle Bravo. I feel like my Castle Bravo sequence is significantly better than the one that's presented in the show, and I've changed so little from it, which is why it gets so frustrating for me, because the changes are so small and needless that you really didn't need them. Like, there's no excuse for these changes to have been made when it would be so easy to tell the stories you want to tell, which are great stories, very compelling. Monarch Legacy of Monsters is super well written, in my opinion. But you don't need the continuity errors. They're really, really easy to avoid, and yet they don't avoid them because they don't care. It's kind of like how I feel about people who bag on SH Monster Arts, right? You've got the prototype that looks great, but when you push it to market, there's all these quality control issues, and people rightfully slight Monster Arts for it. That's how I feel about the Monarch show. It's like, you've got this great product here, I know you do, but when you've pushed it to market, you've got all these little quality control issues that don't need to be there. And it's really frustrating. Spencer, yes, Shinomura's gone. But to be honest, Shinomura was never here. That's the thing. The comic books never mattered. They never did. I really wished they did. And for a minute, it felt like they would, because Michael Dougherty was aware of what was going on in Aftershock. For that small window of time in 2019, it really felt like the expanded universe might be folded in a satisfying and compelling way, with the exception of Awakening, which was never fitting in canon to begin with. Literally from the day that comic was published, I got it day one at the comic shop. I went day one, Godzilla 2014 movie came out, we went to the comic shop, I got Godzilla Awakening, I read it, and day one, I knew that thing didn't fit within the MonsterVerse. That thing has never fit within the continuity of Godzilla 2014, and so that comic never really mattered. But for a minute in 2019, they had a different team working on Legendary's creative department with the comics and everything, and that team clearly was trying their best to tell stories within the MonsterVerse, and the director of Godzilla King of the Monsters was aware of this story they were telling. Whether or not it was an afterthought doesn't matter, because, I mean, clearly it was. That comic definitely came about after the fact, and Dougherty didn't confine himself to the comic, but at least he was aware of it, you know? Whether or not he read it was irrelevant, I guess, but then the comic became canon, right? And so you'd expect that somebody over at Legendary would then pass that info to Wingard and say, hey, by the way, these are the rules of the universe. But, I mean, Godzilla vs. Kong, no. I mean, they've got multiple Ghidorah heads when they shouldn't. They've got, like, a portal from Hong Kong to Florida when that came out of nowhere. There's all sorts of stuff in Godzilla vs. Kong that just comes out of nowhere. And it just disappoints me. Now, I can't blame Wingard too much for Godzilla vs. Kong because, of course, those movies were in development at the same time. That's more of a studio issue. They shouldn't have put those things in production at the same time. Although, again, I do actually really like Godzilla vs. Kong, despite the fact that I have a ton of issues with it. I really enjoy the movie, and I wouldn't change much about it either way. I guess the point I'm making is that there's been all these little things building up over time, and I really think it was the Skull Island anime that kind of was my breaking point where I was like, I just can't take it anymore. It's really annoying me. That 7th episode of the Skull Island anime that everybody loved, I couldn't stand it. I thought it was like decent storytelling, decent King Kong stuff, but why was that part of the MonsterVerse? Don't understand that part of it. And then -1 put everything in perspective, and I went, oh, that's how you tell a really solid story right there. Because -1 I really enjoyed. Yeah, no, I know Kamazatz is in the new... I know Kamazatz showed up in the new Justice League comic. I actually haven't been to the comic shop in about 3 months. So I'm behind on the Batman comics, or the Justice League comic. I'm behind on the Justice League X Godzilla comics, unfortunately. I hope to pick those up soon, but I know Kamazatz shows up in it. I know he fights Batman. That's cool. Not that it matters. I mean, also, by the way, I think people treat the MonsterVerse Godzilla very strangely. Like, super weird. The way that Godzilla is idolized at the moment, from the MonsterVerse specifically. Because, like, that comic doesn't mean anything. I know Godzilla whoops Superman's ass. That doesn't mean anything. That's not the MonsterVerse Godzilla who did that. That's a totally different iteration of this Godzilla. I don't know. It's not part of the MonsterVerse. I think it's really strange the way that people got so defensive over MonsterVerse Godzilla when I mentioned that. If you've seen my -1 video, when I mentioned that I felt personally that -1's breath was more destructive than Godzilla from the MonsterVerse, and people got really defensive over that. And I thought it was really strange because, first of all, he's not a real guy. It doesn't change his opinion. He's not real. Second of all, the writers can do whatever they want. So if -1's breath is more powerful, then sure, but the MonsterVerse, his breath could be more powerful too. It doesn't matter because the writers can change that. That's actually kind of my issue with the MonsterVerse. But it's just kind of weird treatment of the MonsterVerse Godzilla at the moment. I don't quite understand the worship. I was talking to a Japanese fan, a fan of Godzilla on Twitter recently, and he said something that I found to be very interesting. Put things in perspective with the MonsterVerse and with Godzilla in a really interesting way that I think is a big takeaway for me and has kind of changed my perspective on Godzilla and kind of the MonsterVerse, and not in a bad way, but it's kind of put things in a new perspective for me. And it was when I was talking to him and he said, the difference between American fans and Japanese fans is Japanese fans remember that Godzilla is a tragedy. He's a symbol for the atomic bomb. American fans think of Godzilla as God and worship him for it. That was, I thought, a really interesting difference. And I guess I fall more on the Japanese side of things in terms of that debate. I don't know. I thought that was interesting. Anyways, Monarch Legacy of Monsters. Sorry for the big ramble there. I'm going to do more and more and more because I've got many thoughts on the MonsterVerse as of late. But I'm curious to hear what you guys think. What do you guys think of Monarch Legacy of Monsters? Are you enjoying it? I am enjoying it. I know not everybody's into the show because it's slow, but what do you guys think about Monarch Legacy of Monsters? That's primarily what I'd like to talk about, especially because episode 3 just came out. It's a good episode. If you haven't seen it, go check it out if you're able to. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good episode. I just disliked a lot of this stuff that happened in 1954. Mark is loving the show. That's great. That's what we like to see. Hassan says he likes it. That's cool. Monarch is okay so far, but I'm hoping it picks up. That's fair enough. I don't really think it will. I think it's going to stay about the same pacing as it has been, and that's just going to kind of be a preference choice and if the show's for you. Nearly fell asleep during the first episode. Fair enough, Spencer. I've seen the first episode 7 times now. I've watched it a couple times by myself. I've watched it with some other people. 7 watches of the first episode. I'm on like 6 of the second episode and like 3 of the third episode. But yeah, I'm curious to hear what you guys think of it all. It's an awesome show. That's what we like to see, Lance Guy. hope Kong isn't treated like an old man in Godzilla X Kong. He's only a few hundred years old in comparison to Godzilla and his ancient ancestors. Now that he's in the Hollow Earth, he should be in his prime. Yeah, Hassan, that's going to be a Wingard issue. I don't think Wingard cares what the continuity says Kong's age is, because he wanted to treat him like old man Elvis. That's what he said in his interviews. For the record, I actually really like Adam Wingard. He's a super nice guy. I've had nothing but pleasant interactions with him. I really respect him. I like his movies a lot. I don't like the way he treats Godzilla necessarily, just because I feel like he kind of bends Godzilla to be whatever Godzilla needs to be for the scene, rather than sticking to a consistent character. And I certainly am nervous about the way he treats Kong like an old man, but I thought that the portrayal of Kong in Godzilla vs. Kong was really, really deep and emotional and interesting to watch, and I really enjoyed him. So I hope that they don't treat Kong like an old man anymore. I think they're going to, because that's kind of what Wingard sees in Kong, and he's the director, and that's the direction he decided to take things in. So whether or not we agree, I think that is what's going to happen. Landsky thinks Monarch is awesome, cool, but I dislike the 1954 stuff. Noob Master, I think I'm right there with you. I think I am right there with you. And I want to say, if you've seen my review for Monarch Legacy of Monsters Episode 3, go check it out if you haven't. That's just posted on the channel today. Sorry, it took me a minute to get that out. I'm working with Apple TV Plus to get my reviews out for you guys. They have changed the release date on these episodes by a day, if you've noticed. Every time they have told me personally, and all of us in those emails, that all of us working with Apple, they tell us that the episodes are going to drop a day after they actually drop. So I expected the episode to drop today, and it dropped yesterday. And then I was in total influx as a result of it. That happened to me last week as well. Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, what was my point that I agree with? Oh, that if you haven't seen my review, go check it out. I had a good time making that review. I ranted a lot. If you want to see a more well-structured D-Man rant with visuals to go along with what I'm talking about, and for me to actually back up what I'm saying, go check that out. But also, there is a lot to love in that episode, and I give it its credit. And I want to say that as much as I disliked the continuity in the 1954 stuff, I thought the writing was really solid, especially Keiko. I thought the performance was really, really great, and I thought the emotional stakes were really strong with that. So I want to give some shout-outs to where shout-outs are due. Landsky loves it. Childish loves it. That's good. I'm glad you think it's awesome. I love Monarch Legacy of Monsters, even if some stuff doesn't fit into place. I think it's a fun show with cool characters. I completely agree. Loving it. I'm just impatient. Nah, I completely get it. That's why I think the show might hold up better for some viewers on a binge. I think a lot of Godzilla fans who want to see monster action are gonna do better on a binge, although don't get your hopes up for big monster fights early in the show, okay? Pace yourself on your expectations. No kaiju battles are right around the corner. That's all I will say. I also want to say, just for the record, I'm not that much... I don't know that much more than you guys. I have slowed down on watching the show because I wanted to be able to speculate with you guys, and I wanted to be able to have fun with you guys. Now I'm going to blow my nose here really quickly. Should I go off camera? How should I do this? Oh, let me do this. This is going to be good. All better. Okay. D-Man, I'm sorry about that comment. I was just triggered. What comment? I don't even remember what comment you're talking about. You're all good. I still enjoy the show, but the continuity errors are annoying. Valerie, yeah, you're preaching to the choir. I cannot agree more. I have a friend who has finished the show, all the episodes that they've provided to us. I'm not going to name drop the friend, but I have a friend who's watched them all. Another reviewer in the community, or scooper, or whatever you want to call them. They can't stand the continuity errors more so than me, which is crazy considering I'm me. I pick up on more, it seems, than they do. Whenever I talk to them, they're like, "Oh, wow, yeah, you got a lot of issues with the things that I didn't even notice," but they have issues with it as well. Like, they can't stand where I'm telling you, the continuity errors are not done by far. In fact, the most egregious are right around the corner. I've only seen the first episode and not others because I don't have Apple TV Premium. Maybe you could get the free subscription trial when the season's done and you can binge it and you can have a good time with it. Godzilla vs. Superman movie would be interesting. Probably wouldn't happen because we have the comics of them fighting, but who knows? I really personally would not be interested in that, but that's just me. I know it's just me. Does Godzilla look slightly different in Monarch Legacy of Monsters? In the first episode, I thought Godzilla looked spot on. I'm curious to hear what you guys think about this. Personally, I thought Godzilla looked phenomenal in the first episode. In the second episode, I thought Godzilla's design, or the third episode, I should say, I thought Godzilla looked, the design-wise, I didn't like their design of Godzilla. I felt like he looked like Godzilla's baby rather than Godzilla himself. I felt like he did not carry the same weight as he should have. Absolutely love Kurt Russell. Stoked he was involved in the Godzilla project. I'm right there, too, CTK. I love him in the show. Chatham Wingard. I'm a fan of Chatham Wingard. I like Chatham Wingard. I just wish sometimes he'd put more emphasis on story and less emphasis on goofs and visuals. But he is an incredible visual storyteller. Thank you, Lance Guy. You're the greatest YouTube commenter. Has it been put how many seasons of Monarch there will be? Nope, they have not said how many seasons there will be, although I do know that they have plans on where season 2 would head. Scene of Godzilla looking at the bomb and then blowing up is going to turn into a massive meme, as it should. They have a great platform. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. That's very nice. I was thinking, what if Castle Bravo scene was in the shows? The original one and the tests were codenamed Castle Bravo, and the intro sequence could have been a montage of the other test. Yeah, that's not what the intention is. The intention is that it's the same bomb. I mean, they paint the same symbol on it. It's the same bomb. It's the same bomb, and it's supposed to be the same test. They just flubbed it. That's honestly, that's what it comes down to. I really like the character of General Puckett. The actor is great in Peacemaker. He brings the same gravitas to this role too. The actor who plays General Puckett, I forget his name off the top of my head. He's doing such a great job in this show. I really like General Puckett. He's just got this really powerful screen presence. There's something about the way he talks. He's got a very interesting look to him. I really like it. Oh, another actor who I don't see getting enough love in this show, and I want to give him a shout out because he's one of my favorite characters, and I hope he gets more love as the next few episodes come out. Legacy of Monsters does not have a soundtrack out yet, but the character is Joe Tippett's character, Tim. I think is so wonderful. I'm such a big Tim fan. I really like Tim. I really like Tim. I'm a big fan. Is there drama with KDM? Not at all. Where'd you get that impression? I love KDM. He and I are good friends. What? If there's drama with KDM, I am unaware of it, and I shouldn't involve me. He's certainly not what I'm talking about. When I was talking about my friend, is that what you're talking about? That my friend isn't KDM is my friend, but he is not the friend I was mentioning. Anyways, sorry, Tim. I really like Tim. I think he represents what Monarch has always kind of represented in the MonsterVerse, and that's these kind of good guys who are out there trying to defend the people in their own weird monarchy way. I think that's kind of who Tim is. So I want to give him a shout out for that because I loved Tim, and he doesn't get the credit he deserves on Twitter. Nobody talks about him. His subtle nuances in the performance are great. Joe Tippett's doing an amazing job. I love the guy. And I'm going to go blow my nose again because I petted the kitty and it's really killing me. Okay, I'm back. Maybe Adam might realize that he needs to treat Kong with justice. I don't know. I feel like Godzilla vs. Kong treated Kong with justice. I just don't think it gave Kong the treatment that many fans were expecting. But as a Kong guy, I was pretty into what they did. Yeah, Godzilla did skip Arm Day Noob Master. It was crazy. It was so weird to see that Godzilla design in that episode. He was so strange looking, I thought. Like Godzilla's baby. It really felt like baby Godzilla in the MonsterVerse. And he was so short. Like, I know I was a little hyperbolic when I said he was 164 feet in my review, but he is wildly shorter than he was in the 2014 movie. Like, the width of Godzilla in the 2014 movie is about as wide as Godzilla is tall in this newest episode of Legacy of Monsters. It was weird. Have you looked up Pangolins yet? No, I have not. Kazant Eater Sloths, blah, blah, blah. Cool, weird family to look up. I'll look up armored mammals. Just because, are you talking about because of the mole monster? What is his name? Its name came out yesterday. I've been calling it the Mole Muto for a while now. So having the Frostvark. The Frostvark. I get a lot of actually type comments these days, like a lot, like a crazy amount. And I've been getting corrected. What? I've been getting corrected on the name of these freaking monsters. You guys, my reviews came out. I recorded those things literally months ago. Like, I didn't know the name of these monsters. They didn't say it in the episode. So I get all these comments like, actually, that's the Ion Dragon. Well, I know that now, but I didn't know that when I recorded it. That's far from the most annoying actuallys I've gotten. People just actually like every second word I say sometimes. It's super weird. Correcting me on like weird stuff too that is so irrelevant. I don't know. Oh, no. You're good, Adam. I wasn't saying that you were trying to correct me at all. I was saying that I've noticed a lot of people are correcting me in the comments, not you. For Kong character, he's treated respectfully, but strength and force, Skull Island anime treats him way better than savings he's gotten GVK. I guess the Skull Island anime has him throw faster punches. That's about it. He's an idiot in the Skull Island anime. He's like immature. He causes that massive tidal wave at the end of the show. To each their own. I wildly prefer the live action iterations of MonsterVerse Kong way more than Kong in the anime. Do you think the Ion Dragon looks like Gauss, man? I personally think it's my favorite design. He's still cool. Oh, it's not your favorite design. Yes, I do get the Gauss out of it. I think actually, if you've noticed, a lot of the monsters in Legacy of Monsters feel very Gamera to me. The Ion Dragon feels very Gamera to me. The way it leaves those streaks in the sky feels like Barugon's lasers, rainbows. The new Frostvark has that ice that comes out of his mouth, very similar to Barugon. I feel like I'm getting big, Batra too, I guess. I feel like I'm getting big Gamera vibes out of these monsters. And I'm here for it. I like it. Man, I'm going to blow my nose again. Is it even worth turning off the camera? I'm going to keep doing it. Whatever. Don't even get me started, Paleo, on the frickin' Kong understanding Spanish. So stupid. Bad writing. Bad writing, I felt. That's a show that I felt generally had decent writing. And then it did stuff like that, and it really, really lost me at times. Oh, thank you, Lance Guy. I like this shirt too. I don't wear it much, but I am a fan of it. I'm choking on water here. I'm going to die on stream. Did Godzilla take down the Laden? Originally, it was implied... It was implied originally that Godzilla took down the Laden in the script for Kong Skull Island. Jordan Vogt Roberts, the director of that movie, had that changed because he didn't want that. It's actually just some other monster off screen. We don't know what monster it is yet. But no, it wasn't Godzilla. Ion Dragon, I don't think is what took it down either. I think a different monster took it down. I think a different monster took down the lot, and I think the Ion Dragon just moved into it after the fact. Ugh. Do you think the line between fun Godzilla and tragic Godzilla is usually whether or not other monsters exist in the universe? No, I don't think that's the case at all. Because I think you can have a tragic... Okay, here's a perfect example. I think Godzilla in King Kong versus... No, not really that one. Okay, let me take it back. I think Godzilla in the entirety of the Heisei era... How about, for instance? I think Godzilla in the entirety of the Heisei era... or Godzilla in Mothra versus Godzilla. I think those are still tragic portrayals of Godzilla. I think those still keep the core characterization of Godzilla intact, where he's a sad creature. The Heisei era in particular does a really good job with that. Making sure Godzilla is sympathetic while also menacing, horrifying, and also justified in his destruction and hatred in his own Godzilla way. I don't think that the determining factor is whether another monster exists. I do think adding another monster tends to make filmmakers think that they need to shy away from serious stories because other monsters fighting... Whatever way you spin it, another monster fighting Godzilla is always going to have some inherent silly factor to it. Always. It literally has never not. It has always had some sort of silly factor to it, whether it be in the Heisei era where it's kind of silly that they're beam spamming, or how about Godzilla vs. Destroya? That's a movie with really high emotional stakes, even for Godzilla himself. The monsters kind of bash into each other in these kind of song and dance ways, and it's a little silly. And so I think a lot of filmmakers play into that because they are uncomfortable with it. I mean, even Ishiro Honda with King Kong vs. Godzilla thought the idea was so absurd that rather than take it seriously, he made it a comedy. And I think he was totally right to do so. But that's not to say you can't tell a serious story with two monsters fighting and have them be tragic. Look no further than War of the Gargantuas, the best iteration of a monster versus monster story where things are taken very seriously. Frankenstein conquers the world. Frankenstein versus Baragon. A weird movie for sure. Still taken with a way of seriousness and sadness with both monsters in the ending. Well, mostly with Frankenstein, but either way, there is a level of seriousness to it. I would say Godzilla fighting the Mutos can be kind of silly, my friend. I think it can be. I think there is a silliness to seeing any monsters fight because it's cool, it's exciting. It feels like toys smashing into each other. When Godzilla tail slaps the Muto or atomic breaths down her throat to kill her, that is stuff that is kind of silly. I mean, it gets you to chuckle. It gets you to laugh with excitement. You're excited. You're hyped. Some filmmakers would feel uncomfortable with that. I think Gareth Edwards knew what he was doing. I think Gareth Edwards knew how to play it straight. And that's something that's really important, is playing it straight. And I think that sometimes filmmakers don't feel comfortable playing it straight because they don't know what they're doing. They're like, well, this isn't gonna, it's gonna be silly. People are gonna laugh. I need to make it silly. I need to let them know I'm in on the joke. I can't let them think I'm not in on the joke. I gotta let them know it. Like the Gamera movies, the Heisei Gamera movies, they play it so straight. They play it really straight. And you could say there's kind of a silliness, but sometimes you can tell that they're being careful with the suits, or you know, sometimes the fights are a little slow. But on the other hand, they play it so serious, and there's such an earnestness to what they're presenting. I like it. And I think you can do that with Godzilla fighting other monsters. I just think a lot of filmmakers kind of shy away from it because they're not confident enough in the material. I think that's honestly what it comes down to, is a lot of the time the filmmakers or the studios themselves are not confident in the material. And so they go, let's make sure that the audience knows we're in on the joke. You think Godzilla should do a rematch with Mechagodzilla? I could not disagree more. Hey D-Man, if future you gets to direct a Godzilla film, how would you create your own design for Godzilla to stand out and be unique from past designs? You know, Essie, upon my return from Tokyo, I started writing my second Godzilla script. I've been talking to peoples, and I would say I'm slowly taking steps to hopefully seeing these dreams become a reality. my approach to redesigning Godzilla would be very similar to what you saw Takashi Yamazaki do, and that's to not reinvent the wheel, but to just kind of take the things that I really liked about Godzilla designs in the past and try and perfect those things personally. Um, and then the rest of the movie would be where I would try and be creative in the story rather than just the design. Because I think Godzilla's design generally works best when it's Godzilla. It's my favorite designs of the modern age have been the animated ones that they do in the short films, in those little gemstone short films, and also Minus One. Those are my favorites. I don't know. I hope that answered. Oh, but I didn't seem like I'm implying that I'm going to direct a Godzilla movie either. Not at all. I'm just saying that for the first time in a while, it seems like I'm meeting enough people to where maybe someday I can try and make this become real. I gotta blow my nose again. I'm really sorry about that. That's my freaking cat's fault. You can blame him. Returning to episode 3 of Legacy of Monsters, which of you guys have seen episode 3 of Legacy of Monsters? What are your hottest takes on it? What are your theories for where we're headed? Let's do that stuff. I showed another girl Godzilla vs. Destroya on Godzilla's birthday this year, and she cried at the end. I think I'm in love with her. Oh, good for you, man. That sounds like a fun time. I'm glad the US G store has Gemstone Godzilla in the ride. Oh, I didn't know they had those. I did not know they added those. I didn't. You know, I've actually never used the US Godzilla store. I probably should, but that's really cool to hear. Save new Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla for Gemstone. I absolutely agree. Your hottest take is that you liked the episode? Fair enough. Yeah, Ethan, I agree. The continuity errors is really frustrating because they're just so easy to avoid. So easy to avoid. I don't know where they go with it. I would like if they set up Aftershock. Well, they can't set up Aftershock because the show takes place after Aftershock. The show takes place in 2015. Aftershock already happened at this point. That's why, as you'll see, Godzilla's spines have changed. I mean, you see that in the trailer. Childish Landino, now you're speaking my language. My hot take is Anders Holm's voice is too high. Here's my thing with Anders Holmes. I really like his portrayal of Bill Randa because he's very charismatic, likable, fun. He's got weird little quirky nuances to him. Some of the ways he moves, like that clip I shared on Twitter today, the way he dismounts the army jeep is so strange and stylish. I really like it. And I like the character a lot, but I don't buy him as Bill Randa. And I think the thing that truly makes it that I don't buy him as Bill Randa is that John Goodman is a guy who has had real life darkness. Like John Goodman is an actor who has been through a lot in his real life. And when you hear him talk about his past experiences, you can tell that it weighs heavily on him. And so I think personally, as a result, it's given Goodman this edge in his performances where even when he is playing a wholesome character, like say in the movie Matinee, there's this kind of edge to John Goodman where you feel like there's a darkness within him and a danger to him. Like he's capable of doing anything to get what he wants. Like he'll go to extreme lengths. I think that a perfect example of this would be 10 Cloverfield Lane, where you get Goodman playing a wholesome character who's got these really dark, twisted secrets, and he is not a good person at all, but he can mask it. And I feel like you get a lot of that with Bill Randa. I feel like Randa in Kong Skull Island is a guy who is deeply traumatized and has the experience of the USS Loden in particular weigh so heavily on him that He carries around this darkness with him wherever he goes in that movie, and you hear it in the voice. You see it in the performance. The scene he's talking with Packard by the river is such an incredible performance on John Goodman's part, and you get this real dark and heavy emotion lurking within this guy, and you feel like he could snap. You get none of that with Anders Holm. Anders Holm is just such a nice guy, goof. He is so happy, and like everything's a joke to him. When he explores the Loden, he doesn't feel traumatized. He doesn't even feel very vindicated. He just feels kind of satisfied. And I would like to see the darkness within him, the resentment towards the government for lying to him about what happened to his ship, the anger that for years he's been trying to explain himself and nobody takes him seriously. And I get that we're kind of seeing that happen in the show. He's got these stupid theories like the Godzilla teleportation theory, which obviously is him misunderstanding the Hollow Earth. But you got these elements of that this character has these things building for him. And the way Keiko goes out at the end of episode 1, which I think there's some debate right now as to if she's dead. I actually don't know the answer. I think she is. I think she died. That's how I interpreted that scene anyways. But with the way Keiko dies right in front of him, and I'm sure he will feel it's his fault, even though I strongly believe that was Lee Shaw's fault. This should give the character the darkness that we need to bring him to where he was at in Kong Skull Island. It's just, will we follow up on that? Will we actually see Anders Holm get to play that? Or will they just kind of say, oh, that happened in between the movies. That happened in between Monarch and the movie. You don't get to see that, but it did happen. He did develop. I would like to see that darkness within him. I really hope that they show it. And I think the voice plays a lot into that. If the Heisei Godzilla and the MonsterVerse Godzilla were to get into a fight, who do you think would win? I think whoever would win would be whoever the writer wanted to win personally. But the MonsterVerse Godzilla can kind of do whatever he wants, whenever the plot dictates it, even if that's lose. Sometimes the guy just loses a fight when he absolutely shouldn't have, and then fans will just go, MonsterVerse Godzilla, and I'm sick of it. So I hope the Heisei Godzilla would kill him, because I'm sick of the MonsterVerse Godzilla getting away with whatever the plot asks him to, rather than being a consistent character with well thought out rules. I'm sick of it. Anyways. When will you do the Rebirth of Mothra to finish off the Mothra collection? I have no idea. When will you do a top favorite moments in the MonsterVerse comics? Probably never, because the MonsterVerse, I don't have a top favorite moments in the MonsterVerse comics. I read them once or twice. I've actually read a lot of them twice. I've read a couple more than twice, and I kind of forget about them because I think they're pretty forgettable. I think, honestly, you want to know my top moments? It's anything that Zid works on. It's anytime I get to see Zid's artwork. I think Kong, The Birth of Kong, that's the peak of the MonsterVerse comics for me. I thought that comic was really, really good. Although it introduced the idea of like telepathy into the MonsterVerse, which I'm glad they've never followed up on. That was stupid. But other than that, good comic. Really good. My hottest take is Anders Holmes is your favorite. Good for you, man. I think he's great. I really like Billy. I think he's your favorite MonsterVerse character. That's a bold take, but I like it. I like that you're taking the swing there. I like that character's connected with you. One of the things I thought was weird in the episode was the text saying 1954, 2 years after the Philippines. Like, why do they need to make it like, why do they need to make it more clear or say that? Yeah, I actually did not think about that, but that's actually really funny. Well, I guess because they're just trying to remind the audience of where we left off in case they forgot. But I actually really like the way that they start with the counter. Kong Skull Island font, by the way. Love that little detail. And then the counter ticks up. I thought that was really neat. It's a good way to show where we're at. I think we might see the Ion Dragon in future episodes, since there's a picture of his face in the background appears to be at night. I completely agree, Daniel. I think he is going to be the big bad of the season. Here's my big swing for the show. I'm going to take some big swings, okay? And depending on if I'm right, you can either say I've seen the show and have cheated, which I haven't, or you can finally realize that D-Man is the greatest Godzilla speculator of all time. Ready? Here's some big swings for you. Okay, number one swing. I think that this show is building towards the modern characters heading to... which one do I want to do first? I think the show is building towards the characters in the past finding out about the Hollow Earth, sort of. You know that orb that they have in the trailer? It was recently thinking about what that thing could be used for, and whether it be like deep underwater exploration or not. I think it's gonna wind up going to the Hollow Earth or dipping its toes into a Hollow Earth cavern the way that we do in Godzilla King of the Monsters. I think that's what that orb is going to be used for, which will set Bill Randa down the path of Hollow Earth. I think that's what's going to set him down the path. And then the other thing I'm thinking is, I think our characters are going to be, you know, those maps that Hiroshi has with all the squiggles on it? I think those maps are globally the Ion Dragon. You know, the Ion Dragon traces these motions through the air. I think the map that Hiroshi has, because he's a satellite guy, he's seeing things from space. He's not looking at it on a small scale like Bill Randa was. I think that's the migration paths of the Ion Dragon, which I think is still out there because I think Monarch's irresponsible, as they've always have been. I think that I think that that's what they're tracing. I think they're going to be tracing the Ion Dragon. I think in the final episode it's going to turn up. It's going to be Godzilla-sized. I think it'll be Godzilla's size. And I also think it's not what was inside the ship. I think inside the Laden was a bunch of eggs and babies and crap. I think all that stuff was inside the Laden, like babies that we didn't get to see. That's what all the bodies were there for. They were being cocooned for food for the babies to eat. And I think it's going to end with this very Gauss-like sequence where Godzilla is fighting one big monster and a ton of little minions. That's going to be my big swings. I also think our main characters of younger characters are somehow, some way going to learn about Skull Island. I think they're going to blow the lid off Monarch. I think they're going to expose Monarch to the public. I think Monarch being exposed to the public is going to lead into the trials and Godzilla King of the Monsters. And I think the season's going to end with them figuring out that Skull Island exists. And maybe, oh, here's an idea. I just thought of this right now. Because I'm like, why would they go there? They wouldn't. But maybe Hiroshi wants to go to Skull Island because he wants to see where his dad died. Because I'm trying to think, how could they get back to Skull Island? Because you don't start the show on Skull Island and then not show Kong. I feel like if you're going to have Skull Island in the first episode, Kong is going to turn up in an episode, or at least I want to see Kong turn up. And then maybe Hiroshi goes to try and find out where his dad died. Maybe he's like, I want to see the truth. And I think Shaw, because he's a big name actor and the MonsterVerse loves to do this with big name actors, is going to die in the last episode. I think he's going to get crushed by something. Those are my big swings. My big swings. What do you guys think of all those? Also said we didn't get to see more Ken Watanabe or a younger version of Dr. Serizawa, or dare I say more Bryan Cranston. I don't think we'll ever see more Bryan Cranston. Yeah, I'm really sad that we didn't get to see Serizawa. I think if they do a season 2, that's where Serizawa would turn up. I think a season 2 would bring in some more of our Monarch members. Personally, though, if I were to do a season 2 for Monarch Legacy of Monsters, I wouldn't bring back Serizawa. I would bring back Houston Brooks, because Bill Randa and Houston Brooks need to meet at some point. Corey Hawkins is still young enough to do the character. Joe Morton is around to play the character in the modern day. You could bring that version of Houston Brooks in as well. Also, I pitched on Twitter an interesting idea. I had to have Corey Hawkins play Aaron Brooks, the son of Houston Brooks. Just give him a different makeover, and you can bring Corey Hawkins back in, because he was for a minute the face of the MonsterVerse, for just a minute. He was, I would say Brooks randomly became the face of the MonsterVerse from like 2017 until 2019, and then all of a sudden he disappeared. And I would like to see him back in a prominent role. I know he was in the Kingdom Kong comic, and that was Joe Morton's version of Houston Brooks. But I want to see more Houston Brooks, and that would be where I would take the characters. But also Serizawa should be there because he's still around. He's still alive and leading Monarch at this point, so it'd be weird if he didn't turn up. I think she's dead too. The present characters mentioned her death. Felt like a scene before she falls. Yes, I agree, Childish. I think that was her death. I think that was her death. No way she survived that attack. I agree. She's a goner. Cool theory. Nice. I'm glad to see you guys think. Glad to see you guys think that the theory's cool. Kind of similar to Kong versus the Kamazots. Exactly. Yeah. Like Godzilla fighting a bunch of little monsters as well. I also like it when a Godzilla fights a big monster that flies. That's always fun. How long before they go full multiverse MonsterVerse? Full multi-MonsterVerse? I hope never. I hope never. What if the season is Godzilla based and the next season is all Kong and Skull Island based? I don't think so. I don't think they would do that only because, I mean, maybe they could because it's called Monarch and not Godzilla. But Godzilla was such a major selling point of season 1. It would feel weird to sideline him even more than he's already currently sidelined. Godzilla vs. Kong Skull Island outpost? Yeah, maybe they go there and they see them building that. This show takes place in 2015, so the thing would be... well, they would currently have an outpost on Skull Island. They wouldn't have that outpost on Skull Island, but they would have an outpost on Skull Island. Would the showrunners know that? Probably not. Probably not. And I pulled that out of the top of my dome right then. But probably the showrunners would not do that justice because they only seem to have watched the movies one time. I don't want to call the showrunners out. Might not be their fault. I don't know whose fault it is. Somebody's to blame here. And I'm going to blame everybody until I get an answer. Also, they gave a pretty half-hearted answer to... yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing Saturn Dusk. They gave a pretty half-hearted answer to why Godzilla's spines are all different in Monarch Legacy of Monsters, where it was like, his spines were injured in 2014. And a lot of fans were like, oh, that's sick! That's confirmation that Muto Prime still exists! You can read into that quote all you want. That guy does not know about Muto Prime. I know KDM says he knows about Muto Prime. There's a 0% chance that the plot of Godzilla Aftershock factored into them making this show in pretty much any way. I'm sure what it just means is like someone at Legendary told them that Godzilla's spines developed. They grew from 2014 to 2019 because Godzilla's spines got injured. And so they went, oh, all his spines got injured. But maybe from the Mutos. Maybe they think it's from the Mutos themselves. I don't know. Point is, it's such a vague throwaway answer, I felt. It wasn't specific enough. It's not like they came out and said, Jinshin Mushi destroyed Godzilla's spines in a sonic burst attack. Therefore, Godzilla's spines had to regrow for King of the Monsters. And that's where we pick up. They didn't say that. Because they don't know that. I hope that Shaw does not get eaten by the Ion Dragon. That is going to make me so sad. Why not both? Childish Landino, it's been so long since you commented that, I'm sure that I don't even know what you're talking about. Why not both what? I think the show is building to a reveal that Monarch and perhaps Apex have a closer relationship, showing that Monarch can't be trusted like S.H.I.E.L.D. with Hydra. That very well could be the case. I think it could. I don't think it'll be Apex, but I think it'll be like Verdugo, who turns up in episode 3. I think she's a bad guy. And I think that she's going to be a bad guy who has a very high-ranking position in Monarch, and unbeknownst to Serizawa, has kind of turned a faction of Monarch into, unbeknownst to them, bad guys. Spoilers for episode 10, D-Man shows up and he's the one who runs Monarch. It's true. I don't really want to get into it because I felt like that's a pretty big spoiler, but since Goji Fan Kazilla posted in the comments, I figure I should come clean about it. Well, the truth is, Adam Wingard did see the poll for getting D-Man in Godzilla vs. Kong. He DM'd me about it and said it was impressive. That actually is the truth. That really did happen. And much like how I flew to Japan just to watch a movie, and that's all I did in Japan, much like how that was the truth, the rest of the truth is that they couldn't get me in Godzilla vs. Kong, but they did get me in Monarch Legacy of Monsters. And actually, my name is just Papa Serizawa, which I felt like was a strange character name to give me because I'm not Japanese. But they explained that it's more of like, it's not a blood relation type of thing as much as it is like kind of an association type of thing. So, yeah, sorry. I played Papa Sarazawa in Monarch Legacy of Monsters episode 10. I do get killed, but I don't want to say by who. Do you think they could be using the Orca to call up Godzilla in the desert? You know, Noob Master, I've thought about that many times, but the Orca wouldn't be developed at this point. So I don't think so, no. And also, I don't think Emma Russell's going to be involved. I think it's going to be purely Hiroshi. I think whatever Hiroshi's built will be able to call upon Godzilla in an Orca-esque way, but I don't think it will be the Orca itself. But I actually do think that they will pull in... I think they are going to pull in Godzilla to the desert, yes. Using whatever that orb behind Hiroshi is. We've got lots of space between movies to fill. Yes, we do. And I would love to follow up on the Kong Skull Island movie itself with the cast of Kong Skull Island. Bring them back. They were the best cast of the MonsterVerse by far. By far. And I want them back. I miss those actors in these roles. How is telepathy in the MonsterVerse stupid? We got psychic twins who communicate with a giant moth. Godzilla 93, first of all, no they don't. First of all, that is purely implied and is not stated in the movie. And you're just reading into it and you're choosing to believe that they have a psychic connection to communicate with Mothra. It's just implied, but it's just more of Chen just kind of had a feeling is really what it ultimately came down to. Telepathy in the MonsterVerse is stupid because telepathy is a very sci-fi concept that the MonsterVerse has not built enough to support. The MonsterVerse doesn't have enough of that type of science fiction to support that idea. While it does have giant monsters, that doesn't justify everything. There's still a level of realism that the MonsterVerse is operating with. As much as fans like to disagree, it's the same reason that Godzilla walking on the aircraft carrier will always be stupid. You know, I thought of the perfect metaphor to explain my feelings about that stupid goddamn aircraft carrier, which I'm still pissed off about. In the Godzilla 2014 movie, Godzilla is shown to be as huge as an aircraft carrier. And then in Godzilla vs. Kong, he's walking around on one. And I get that aircraft carriers can be different sizes, but it feels as stupid to me as if Godzilla 2014 were to crash through the Golden Gate Bridge in one movie. 2 movies later, they've rebuilt the bridge. Same bridge. They haven't reinforced it. They've just rebuilt it. And Godzilla then climbs on it and walks around on it, and it doesn't break. It now holds his weight. That's the same level of stupid to me. Anyways, all that to say, they have not built the... there's a certain level of like paranormal to telekinesis and to telepathy and to him having psychic visions that they just haven't supported yet. They'd have to do a lot of groundwork to build that into the universe, and they haven't. They've done none of it. It just came out of nowhere in the comic book. It literally came out of nowhere. But they said like it was a drug that did it. So we're to believe that it's just kind of drug-induced comas and the guy's just kind of full of shit. Like he thinks he's seeing the past, but really he's just tripping on drugs. It's really what it is. Would exposing Monarch really damage their reputation? Because by the time King of the Monsters starts, Monarch has the Argo underwater base and billions of outposts. No, it wouldn't damage their reputation as much as it would just put a public eye on who is the one handling these monsters, as it did in King of the Monsters. The public had an outcry against Monarch. We saw that, but the government was more of just curious what Monarch was up to and wanted Monarch to take some more responsibility. So I don't think that even if they expose Monarch, blow the lid on Monarch, I ultimately don't think it's going to cause Monarch any damage, as we've seen Monarch rebounds just fine. But it would be a good way to shed some light on the truth. If Shah dies, we riot. Couldn't agree more. Verdugo is Spanish for executioner. Very interesting. Wow, I wonder if she's going to kill Li Shah. Based on that name, new theory, Verdugo is going to kill Li Shah in the final episode of the show. That's going to be stupid if that happens. I'm going to be so mad if Kurt Russell dies, but he will, because he's a big actor, and that's how the MonsterVerse treats big actors. I'd want to see the construction of Mechagodzilla in a future season. You know, anything to support the world building of Godzilla vs. Kong is welcomed for me. If we want to get word that Apex is building a goddamn maglev from Florida to Hong Kong, please tell me sooner rather than later, because otherwise it's going to come out of nowhere. Hi, D-Man. How are you doing today? Hi, Dino. I'm doing all right. How are you doing? I hope you're doing well. They kind of use the show to expand on the cave paintings. We keep seeing stock footage, but with those guys writing... they seem to forget everything but monsters will go brrr. Oh, they could have used the show to expand the cave paintings. Yeah, I actually think that Wingard wants to expand the cave paintings, so I don't think they're gonna. I have seen the Spiral Studios Jinshin Mushi. It looks pretty alright. I just think Jinshin Mushi's design is ugly. I think Muto Prime has an ugly design, but Spiral Studios always does a wonderful job creating stuff like that, so yeah. Big shouts to Spiral Studios. The Hollow Earth Banana is going to... yeah, Hollow Earth Banana is going to do you in, huh? Well, Saturn Dusk, I don't want to give too much away, but remember when I was talking about that ball that I think they're going to use to dip into the Hollow Earth? Let's just say Papa Sarazawa rides that ball into the Hollow Earth in the final episode like it was a Doctor Strangelove with the atomic bomb. Only to find a big banana. That's spoiler alert for the post-credit scene of the season, I guess. Sorry I put that out there early, but now you guys have something to look forward to. I highly doubt that Kong will show up in the last episode. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just saying I would like it because I like Kong, and I don't know. He shows up at the start of the show, even if it's stock footage. I just want to see more of his beautiful face. Alan Jonah cameo for the end of first season. You know what I think would be good is to bring Alan Jonah into season 2 because he's such an important presence in the MonsterVerse that they've spent so little time developing, mostly because Wingard doesn't want to develop non-Wingard ideas. Which is fine, fair enough for him. I just hope another filmmaker takes up Doherty's ideas, which I thought were generally pretty solid. I thought they were strong ideas. And I would like to see, I would love to see Alan Jonah return for a future season of this show, especially because Charles Dance is no stranger to television. Of course, doing Game of Thrones, and this show, in my opinion, is Game of Thrones level of quality. So I'd love to see that. And that'd be a great way to give that villain more presence in the MonsterVerse, because he needs it desperately. MonsterVerse needs him. I thought he was such a good villain. It annoys me that they keep hiring new actors and forgetting the bones that were earlier and could be used to make more tidy lore. Yes, Arthur, I agree. I would like to see more of the actors from, say, Kong Skull Island return. Personally, I don't think the cast of Godzilla 2014 should return. I think those characters deserve a happy ending outside of the MonsterVerse. I think that they deserve to just be out there. But I want to see some of the characters from Kong Skull Island come back, like very badly. And King of the Monsters too. There was a lot of characters in King of the Monsters that are just missing. All of the characters on the Argo Jet, all of G Team, I want to see those guys back. Oh, so shout out to G Team. For those of you who don't know, O'Shea Jackson Jr. and my friend Chris Mijahangir over at Toho Kingdom. This is going to be a random plug that I'm going to do in here. Please tweet out your love for hashtag Monarch G Team. Is that what it was called? I think it was. Please tweet out your love for G Team, for the MonsterVerse. It is an anime idea that these two guys had. O'Shea Jackson Jr., for those of you who don't know, played Barnes in Godzilla King of the Monsters. Of course, that means that this is like the guy who is the face of G Team in the movie wants to develop G Team into an anime, and they have promised to deliver on all the stuff that Godzilla fans for years have been wanting in the MonsterVerse. I know that they've got some really fun ideas. They want to do big monster battles. The concept art they shared was just wonderful, showing their wonderful, incredible redesign and take on Gigan in the MonsterVerse. Biolante, their Biolante was so cool. They had Sonda and Gyra, the Gargantuas. So go tweet out about hashtag Monarch G Team, about hashtag G Team, about the MonsterVerse, about how you want this show, because Legendary is aware of it. If we get enough fan buzz, it very well could become a reality. So do your part. I'm trying to do mine. Godzilla coming out of the sand for no reason is going to be funny. He can burrow through the Hollow Earth. It's fine. Yes, I did hear that they name dropped Sarazawa in episode 3. Are you excited for the first trailer? Will be November 30th or December 3rd of Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire. Yes, I do know the trailer's right around the corner. I know what they're releasing the trailer for. I know why they're doing it, when they're doing it. I haven't seen it yet. I'm excited for it. I cannot wait for it. I'm going to see it when you guys see it. But I am aware that the trailer is very soon, coming very soon. What's Verdugo? Marco, Verdugo is the new Monarch woman. She's the new bad guy woman who shows up. Verdugo kills D-Man. Childish. She ain't down there with that banana. There's a different boy down there with that banana. People wanted them to set up New Empire. Well, I'll tell you, there's a big orange monkey down there with that banana who did not like me dropping it on my ball. Oh, what's up, Oscar Hernandez? Big shout out to Oscar Hernandez, one of my absolute original subscribers. Thank you for tuning in. He says, do you think next year is going to be the biggest year for Godzilla with everything coming out back to back? Box office wise, no. In terms of fan interest, I think it very well could be the biggest year for Godzilla we have seen since 2019 in terms of fan interest. Although I would say this year is the biggest interest we've seen in Godzilla in terms of fan interest since 2019, because like -1 has people really interested. And with -1 coming out at the end of this year and then springboarding into Monarch, which will still be going into January, as well as New Empire, yeah, you very well could be right. Next year could be the biggest year for Godzilla's general popularity, but I don't think the box office will be as kind. I think that, as we're seeing with Monarch, some audiences are just kind of not trusting the MonsterVerse's quality anymore. The show expands the world of the humans, while Godzilla X Kong will probably expand the world of the monsters. That is absolutely that's the idea, Childish Land. That is literally the idea behind it. Monarch was supposed to dive into the Monarch organization and the human scale, whereas Godzilla X Kong is supposed to dive into the origins of the Titans, which I think is going to be kind of dumb. Oh, here's something that I'm just going to say now. I'm not going to give spoilers or anything. I know details about New Empire because I obviously know people who've worked on it and who have worked close to it. That movie is following through with what I'm talking about, where it's making these weirdo continuity errors that don't need to exist. They just don't need to exist. And yet they're gonna be there. It's so stupid. Like super simple things that you'd go, well, surely that's not going to happen because that doesn't make any sense continuity wise. And then it's just going to happen. I was wondering if you had seen where O'Shea said that they're back on G Team since his strike is over. I absolutely did, Saturn Dusk. I absolutely did, my friend. I did see that they said they're back. I cannot wait to see what they cook up. I really hope G Team gets some sort of traction. The fact that the show killed off a bunch of kids and one of the main central characters all in the first episode is super bold and something not even the movies could do. Yeah, that was a very strong choice to open the season with that, and I really, really liked it. Imagine if the trailer was replaced with a banner. You wouldn't hear me complaining. I'm drowning in content right now. I cannot keep up with how much they're releasing, especially with the release dates keep changing for things. I can't keep up with it. I literally would not be upset in the slightest if Godzilla X Kong got pushed back another 6 months. I'd be happy because it gives me some time to breathe. I feel they need to stop with the time skips and leave a big... I feel they need to stop with the time skips. It leaves a big gap unless it works, but it concerns me with the new MonsterVerse that they're doing another time skip. I completely agree. I think it's really stupid that they're doing that. I don't know why they do the 5-year time skips, but at least it opens the door for future seasons of Monarch Legacy of Monsters, which I hope goes for a long time. Next weekend is going to be crazy if that trailer drops. -1 and that trailer dropping the same weekend will kill me. I think I won't. I don't think I will survive it. I think I'm going to just disappear if that happens. Godzilla 93, that's a personal preference, and clearly the general public is not in your favor here. I'm not either. But that's fine that you like that stuff. I mean, it's the good news about Godzilla's current state is that they're giving us there's stuff for all of us. While I'm not totally into the direction that the films are headed, at least I like -1. It was one of my favorite Godzilla movies I've seen. Not my favorite, but it was one of my faves. And the Monarch Legacy of Monsters is, I think, a very good show. And I like that it's more grounded than, say, say something like The New Empire is going to be, which The New Empire, by all accounts that I have heard, every time I hear something new about it, it sounds more like a toy company was behind a lot of the ideas. Man, if the teaser for New Empire comes out December 3rd, that's going to be a stressful couple days. Monarch goes from a big operation in the 50s, then a shoddy, underfunded group in the 70s, to a secret group in 2014, to a massive international group in 2019, you mean. But yes, what I think is interesting is that, sorry, I saw another comment, I got distracted. What was that one? Oh, the Monarch. What I think is interesting is that Bill Randa really can't come up with conclusive evidence, because if we want to land on where we land in 2017's Kong Skull Island, Bill Randa really can't be much of a success with all of the stuff he's been doing in Monarch. He really can't succeed much. And I think after 1959, after the death of Keiko, guy really can't do much. Because Monarch needs to lose its credibility with the government. It needs to get to the point where it feels like they're wasting money, and it needs to get to the point where they don't even have the resources to get their butts to Skull Island without begging. So, unfortunately for Randa, I think that 1959 needs to be his last successful adventure, if you want to call the death of his wife a success. Okay, I'm going to do another nose blow here. I'm dying here, guys. I could not care less that Adam Wingard pronounces it Godzilla Kong the New Empire. There's an X in it. If he didn't want the X in it, he shouldn't have put it there. The title's clearly Godzilla X Kong the New Empire. You don't say Godzilla Mechagodzilla. You say Godzilla X Mechagodzilla. You don't say Godzilla Megagiras. You say Godzilla X Megagiras. You know why? Because they put an X in the title. I don't know why he would pronounce it like that, but I did see that video, and it did give me a good chuckle. I really like Adam Wingard. I really like him. He and I have had tons of pleasant interactions over the years, and I have nothing but fond feelings for him. I just don't always agree with his creative decisions, which is fine. I'm so thankful for Shin Godzilla and -1. They're breaths of fresh air. They also seem to get, if you don't want to keep up with the plot details, don't make a sequel. Oh, they also get, if you don't want to keep up with the plot details, don't make a sequel. Exactly, Ethan. Yeah, I loved me a -1. I loved me a Shin Godzilla. Yeah, I completely agree. I hope we get a sequel to -1. That's the director of -1 is working on other projects right now, so it's not going to happen for a while, if anything. But I know he has had interviews out there where he said that he kept things. He kept a back door in to get himself a sequel if he wanted one. And -1 has done phenomenally well in the box office, so maybe there's a chance. Yeah, way more insane than Godzilla vs. Kong. From everything I've heard about Godzilla X Kong, like, some of the ideas go off the rails a little bit. They should get a toy company behind it, because Playmates is not doing it. No, Playmates is the one who I think is leading the charge here. I'll probably be crying during the movie, -1. I was, twice. Got me good. I heard some anime with X in their title that they don't pronounce it. Stupid. Don't put X in the title if you don't want to pronounce it. Do you once -1 drops worldwide, do you think we'll see a lot of hate on Legendary Godzilla as the nice Godzilla? I've already seen some. CGK, I think absolutely the opposite. I think you're going to see Legendary Godzilla fans going way harder on how great Legendary Godzilla's is, how he could beat -1 in a fight, and all the normal stuff that they do, which is weird. It's like people are overcompensating as if they are him. You're not him. You're not him. You have no stakes in it. It's weird stuff. But I think you're going to see people get really defensive over Legendary's Godzilla. I think a lot of US fans are not going to be as into -1 as I am. How many jobs are you holding down while trying to process all this kaiju content? 3, but I'm on break for 2 of them because I could not do all of this. I just couldn't keep up with everything. So I had to stop taking shifts with 2 of them for a minute. But once December hits, I'll be picking shifts up again. I honestly don't understand how they'll explain the international outposts, since they showed Monarch was just a tiny group before Castle Bravo. Well, in continuity already, we already know for a fact Monarch was a special task force before 1954. Then it becomes an international organization following Godzilla because the Russians are now aware of Godzilla because the Japanese get looped in on the event. Like, what Monarch Legacy of Monsters didn't show you, and maybe they're telling us it no longer happened, but it totally did, because regardless of what Legacy of Monsters wants to say, film canon has always superseded television canon, always. So even if they're contradicting the movies, they're doing it for the point of nothing. Because they'll never be this, they will never supersede canon. Does that make sense? Like, in the hierarchy of things, no matter what they do in Legacy of Monsters, it literally won't matter compared to what the films tell you is canon. So, the point is, Monarch goes international in 1954 because a bunch of other people, including the Japanese, including the Russians, get looped in on it. And then everybody's in on it, and Monarch's great. And it's the only successful international coalition in the MonsterVerse for the most part, at the beginning. Hunter x Hunter, that is such a stupid way to say it. It's always been Hunter x Hunter. What are you talking about? I don't like whatever my hair is doing. It totally distracted me, too. Nah, Legendary fans have grown up. They're more accepting of Japanese Godzilla. Do you hear yourself? Read my comment sections. They go crazy. They do not like it when you say anything negative about Legendary Godzilla, even if you're saying just the hard truth, which is that his character's inconsistent. That the rules of Legendary Godzilla make no sense because he can do whatever the plot asks him to. There's no way he should have lost in a fight against Mechagodzilla. But actually, he was weakened from his fight from Kong. Well, the filmmaker did a very poor job of showing that, rather than telling that. He can tell us, but everything shown in the movie does not support your statement. Godzilla was beam spamming like he has literally never done before after the atomic drill. There was no evidence he was running low on atomic energy. There's no evidence that his atomic breath was faltering during his fight with Mechagodzilla. He just simply lost the fight because the plot wanted him to. Godzilla also goes from being kind of a Godzilla to being a bully whenever Kong shows up, which is out of character for the MonsterVerse Godzilla up to this point. All of a sudden, he's a bully when Kong shows up. That just doesn't feel like the noble Godzilla we have seen for the past 2 films. Even when he was fighting Ghidorah, you could see that there was true rage in Godzilla, that this was a beef and a feud that goes back a long time, but it didn't feel like a bully. But then when Kong shows up, he becomes a bully. But then when Mechagodzilla shows up, he goes just straight back to being Godzilla. Weird, man. Inconsistent character. The rules don't make sense. He can survive a fall from space, but a punch from a robot hurts him. He survived a fall from space, but Mechagodzilla beats him in a fight. Kong can punch him and it can hurt. Excuse me? The Muchos nearly killed the boy. Ghidorah struggled to do that. I don't know. I see a lot of Godzilla fans get really defensive over Legendary's Godzilla, as if I don't love Legendary's Godzilla. I really love Legendary's Godzilla. I just want him to be written more consistently. That's all I want. I want better rules for him because I want to care about him and I want to care about the fights he's in. And currently I no longer do because he just does whatever. He just does whatever. Unless they make that the point. Unless the point of what they do is that they just say, Godzilla can do whatever, and so we're going to use him only in the third act. Like a Showa, like the late Showa era, where Godzilla only turns up for the final battle to destroy the bad guy, which was something that Godzilla fans have been complaining about for literally decades. I don't know. I just want a more consistent character for Godzilla. Also, here's a nitpick for Godzilla King of the Monsters that we don't talk enough about. Godzilla gets supercharged by an atomic bomb in that movie to the point where we are told specifically Godzilla is going to explode like an atom bomb. He is gonna die. You know what saves his life just barely is the sacrifice of Mothra, allowing him the ability to vent his atomic energy. Did a second Mothra sacrifice herself in 1954 to give him the ability to vent the atomic energy that he surely consumed during the Castle Bravo test? What the hell? That has never been consistent, Michael Dougherty. You know what I'm curious about? Do you think Godzilla was going to eat that atomic bomb in Legacy of Monsters? He comes out of the water, as many have said, like Moto Moto. Do you think he was going to eat that bomb? Or do you think he was just going to kind of stand there by it and absorb it? Because what I would have really loved to see, and they didn't do it because obviously they were trying to tell us that that was the Castle Bravo bomb, which it just wasn't. But that's what they wanted us to tell us. I would have loved to see a Godzilla 84 reference where he picked it up and then his spines just start crackling as he starts to absorb it. I just don't picture the MonsterVerse Godzilla as a dude who eats. I know he kind of eats Ghidorah's head, which looks stupid. But I think it'd be cool if he kind of absorbs it rather than just... But it would be fun to see him munch on that thing. So, you know what? If I get to see something goofy enough like Godzilla munching on a bomb like a burger, I guess I'll take it. And I'll complain about it if it happens because that's stupid. They kind of skipped a lot of important stuff. Honestly, I wish we just got another episode for every decade. I think they're going to loop back on stuff. I think they're going to loop back. Jesus. I think they will be jumping backwards to the stuff we've skipped over. At least I'm hoping we will. As much as I want -1 to kill at the US box office, I'd prefer to get the critical acclaim on top of the fan base being happy that we got a serious and emotional Godzilla film. I'm very happy that the movie is getting some critical praise, and I think it will continue to if people discover the movie, but I don't think it's going to be very widely discovered outside of Godzilla fans in the United States, very unfortunately. But it would, I think, do very well if more people found it. If more people found -1, I think the movie would do critically very well because it's an astoundingly well-made movie. Even though I think a lot of Godzilla fans are going to have an issue with the third act of the movie, they're Godzilla fan complaints. They're not like real film complaints. So doesn't really matter. I was there when you made the positive review of Shin back then. Almost every comment then was negative. Now most people like Shin and are hyped for -1. It's true. It was very weird that everybody was super hateful of Shin Godzilla, including myself. It was just the atmosphere at the time. The more I saw of Shin Godzilla, I just did not like how different it was. He's probably going to kiss it. Yeah, he might have kissed it. He might have just... Should have brought a bib. I get that people say he's adorable. I never got the adorable vibe. Maybe I need to rewatch it, considering I view him as the son of Godzilla in that scene. Cute little guy. So tiny with his shrimpy little arms. What was up with him? He was so weird in that scene. If the male Muto can eat a nuke, Godzilla should too. Fair enough. That's a good point. I just don't see Godzilla's too classy. I don't see Godzilla eating something. I think he just absorbs it. I think he's too classy. Also, isn't it stated that the monsters moved to the hollows of the earth to feed on the radiation and they eat it through unknown means? Godzilla seems to vent it in through his spines. That's what he seemed to be doing in King of the Monsters anyways, when he went to his temple. That was kind of always the impression I was under. Remember how Godzilla's been to the Hollow Earth before and it didn't do anything to him? I remember that. I remember when King of the Monsters, he lived in the Hollow Earth, and then now we're told that wasn't the real Hollow Earth. But surely he's been to the real Hollow Earth. I'm certain he has. If you want to believe those comics are canon, he goes to the Hollow Earth. It's possible Adam Wingard might treat Kong like an old man because he's fixing the human characters. Might not treat Kong like an old man because he's fixing the human characters, and stated that the movie will have compelling human characters. Well, every director of a Godzilla movie is going to tell you that the human characters are compelling. It's you get to decide whether or not that works for you. I have personally found that in the MonsterVerse, the characters that I find the least compelling are Godzilla vs. Kong and Godzilla 2014, despite how much time we spend with the characters in 2014. But that's just me. I could get into that rant a different day. That's a different rant for a different day. I think 2014 gets a lot of praise in fans currently. People saying that the human characters are well written, and they're not. And I can get into why I don't think they really are. But that is a big topic. I do, however, controversially, think that the characters are well written in Godzilla King of the Monsters. Even if you find them annoying, they are better fleshed out than they were in Godzilla 2014. I thought he eats like Muto. I thought he eats like the Muto, stupidly like how you eat a jawbreaker. He just licks it. I was gonna do one of those NPC streamer jokes, but you know, about Godzilla with the atomic bomb. But I just can't bring myself to have a clip of me floating around doing that. And the scene, Godzilla almost sounded like he said, huh? In that scene right before the explosion. I guess I'll have to rewatch it. Godzilla does seem like weirdly angry at the bomb before he even eats it. He kind of gives it this look like he knows it's going to explode. But hey, that's what he wanted, because in King of the Monsters, we're told that's how bro eats. Oh no, -1 won't play in any theaters near you? I hope you can... I hope there's a way to go see it. I've always thought he absorbs it through his skin too. Yeah, they kind of forgot how they made the Hollow Earth anyways. Oh, yes, they kind of forgot why they made the Hollow Earth anyway. They certainly seem to have, because it wasn't supposed to be a planet under the planet. It was supposed to just be where they burrowed. That's what it was supposed to be, which was a far more compelling idea, I thought. I really... not a big fan of the portrayal of the Hollow Earth. I would have gone for something a lot scarier. Lit by lava only. Caves. I would have gone for caves. Not like what we saw in King of the Monsters. Like what we were told the Hollow Earth was. Wouldn't have gone with that planet. But it's better for sequels. And I'm very curious to see the exploration of it. I'm excited to see Wingard unpack his ideals for the Hollow Earth. And I'm curious to see it. Because he has some really cool ideas like the gravity inversion. I just thought of something. How does gravity work in the MonsterVerse? Is every planet hollow? I literally could not begin to answer that question. I have no idea. I have no idea. Godzilla can make facial expressions in -1. He is smiling in the ocean when he's chasing the boat. Well, he's not smiling in the ocean when he's chasing the boat. It's just that he looks like he has a smile. There's a difference. Also, what wasn't cringe? What did I say was cringe? Joe Brody was hella good, though, you got to admit. I completely admit that Joe Brody was a good character, but Joe Brody was only in the first third of the movie. There's another 2/3 that followed Joe Brody. it's really more of like a little under. Joe Brody's in a little over a third of that movie, I think, if you do the math. But the characters outside of him, while they have emotional cruxes, are not as well written. They're not as well fleshed out, I will say. That's how I will word it. They are not as well fleshed out as the core cast of King of the Monsters, including some of the sub-characters, like your Rick Stantons are more fleshed out than your Ford Brodys, and he has way less screen time and way less presence. GXK looks to be streamlining the plot by not having two different sets of characters, so I think they're going to fix a lot of the problems GVK had. I really hope so, Childish. I think that you're probably right. I think that they probably did learn their lesson, that they just over-bloated GVK, because I think it's undeniable, unless you're a big Madison Russell fan, that whenever we're following Team Godzilla, that's when general audiences checked out and kind of went to sleep and waited for the next Kong scene to roll around. And it had nothing to do with Kong is better than Godzilla and everything to do with the characters at play had far less value when you were following Team Godzilla. And I actually like Team Godzilla. I just think they undeniably have less value, not just in the script, but as a viewer. Having exposed teeth doesn't mean smiling. Yeah, I agree. You didn't see Godzilla's breath locked when him and Mechagodzilla had a beam clash. You didn't see Godzilla's breath looked when him and Mechagodzilla had a beam clash? What are you talking about? I've seen it a million times. What? I don't know what you're talking about. At least they knew they had to bring the goat Bernie into the A plot for this movie. I'm curious how people feel about Bernie generally. Well, I really liked him. This is going to be a weird thing to say, but I explain it more in my Godzilla vs. Kong review, so I won't really get into it as much here, but well, I really liked... Okay, Eli, take care. I think you're leaving. I can't tell. I think you're saying it's late for you. Well, I really liked Bernie. I felt he needed to be balanced out by, of all people, Julian Dennison's Josh. I think Josh does more for Team Godzilla than people will ever give him credit for, because somehow, some way, that kid is the straight man in that movie. And any time we're on Team Godzilla, I think I would hate to be watching it had Josh not been there to balance them out. I'm really glad that Josh was there to balance them out, because it was kind of insufferable. It would be, I think, if he wasn't. And so I'm curious to see when Bernie shows up without... I mean, now he's going to be in a sea of straight men, hopefully, so maybe he'll be a bit more tame. Maybe. But I also think it's weird that he's like a conspiracy theorist good guy, because typically conspiracy theorists don't deserve credit. Kind of like the guy in episode 1 of Legacy of Monsters, whose conspiracy is that Godzilla is CGI, which I thought was great. I thought that was a great touch. Spines grow out like antlers. True that. Why is Godzilla's spines not grow from 2014 to... From 1954 to 2014, Godzilla's spines don't grow, but then from 2014 to 2019, they grow like crazy. I guess because the Muto Prime shattered the spines is what we're told, and so he had to regrow new ones because the old ones were damaged. I guess that's what we're told. Whatever. I won't think about it too much. Do you think we could do you think we could see another Kraken from the Skull Island anime in the future? No. I think it's dead. I think it's dead and gone, and I hope we don't see another. I just had a fun tag team idea of Bernie and podcast from Ghostbusters Afterlife. You know what? I would love to see those two. I'd love to see those two hop on a podcast together. I feel like the two of them would have lots of fun stuff to talk about. Did they explain what happened to the flying kaiju? Kind of zoned out. No, they did not, Romero. Romo. Sorry. They did not explain. I think they're going to wait a couple episodes. I think probably, if I had to guess, I'm going to guess probably in like an episode 6, we're going to get more word on that guy. I think they'll have teasers of him. I think they'll tease what happened to him, but I don't think we're going to see him until late in the show. Like episode 8, he could show back up, for instance. And then I think he will be in the final episode and can fight Godzilla. Are you excited for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes? I don't know. I really, really, really loved the Planet of the Apes trilogy. I don't need more of it. And it doesn't look like they're doing enough different for me to where I'll take it. I'll see what it is, but I don't need it, I will say. Oh, thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. Yeah. Well, Mr. Milkman, more power to you, man. I don't know how you loved the Kraken's design, but good for you, man. I couldn't stand it. I thought it looked so bad. Not intimidating at all. So distracting. Just different parts slapped on each other. Distractingly silly. I also didn't like how colorful all the creatures in Skull Island anime were. I get that it's a cartoon, and I get that it was primarily geared towards children, but it's still an installment of the MonsterVerse, or so they say. Like, why didn't the trapdoor crabs look more like the crab from Legacy of Monsters? They sure should have. Honestly, whatever mystery they're building up to, it's not going to be compelling. I don't agree with that, Romo. I think the mystery is going to be. I think the mystery will probably be about the Ion Dragon. And I think it will be compelling. I think it will be, personally. I think that they released a new picture of the Ion Dragon recently. It'll definitely be back. Yeah. I personally really like the writing in Monarch Legacy of Monsters. I think all this stuff with the human cast is typically pretty solid. And I personally, while I don't think the mystery is materializing fast enough structurally for the show, I do like it. I do like the writing overall, and so I have faith. Some would argue we didn't need -1, so I'll let Apes team cook. Oh, I see what you're saying, Childish. Yeah, that's a fair point. That's a fair point entirely. I mean, if you had asked me, I would have probably said we didn't need -1. But then I saw the first teaser and I thought, this is the movie I've been needing. And it was. I saw it and I thought this was the movie I've been waiting for. It kind of amazes me how Godzilla can still have solid entries this far into the franchise. I'm very impressed by it. Good job, Godzilla. Dog is a bad design. Everything in the Skull Island anime was pretty badly designed. I like the characters. I like the character designs. I thought all the characters looked good. I had a really strange, speaking of character designs for Skull Island, a show which I have chosen not to talk about a ton since it came out because I get frustrated with it. Even though I did enjoy my time watching it, I get frustrated by talking about it. Because it just should have been so much better. I got to an argument with this guy. Like this really big argument with this guy. I actually wasn't. I was not the one arguing. I was asking these like very open-ended questions because I was curious to see what he would say. Mostly because I thought it was interesting to see if I could drive up my analytics on my channel. That's the truth of it. I wanted to see if responding to hate to this one guy would leave these massive comments, and I wanted to see if responding to him would somehow benefit the analytics on my Skull Island review. But he was so pissed off that I didn't like the Kraken's design. He really was a Kraken stan. He also was a big Annie stan, which I've noticed there's a bit of the like Annie-Kate overlap in that when you criticize these, I've noticed it's mostly entirely female characters in the MonsterVerse, probably with other franchises too. I'm just not a big part of fandom outside of Godzilla. When you criticize characters like Annie or Kate, these weird people come out of the waterworks and defend them like their life depends on it, when they won't do that if I were to criticize Kentaro, for instance. I think it's interesting. Probably because they have crushes. That'd be my guess. But yeah, this guy was going crazy defending. Guy was going crazy defending Annie and the Kraken. It was like, you're totally Joe to like them. I just didn't. I also want to clarify. I saw someone on my recent videos not understanding. I don't dislike May. May is certainly my least favorite of the cast of Legacy of Monsters at the moment. But I don't dislike her at all. I feel like May is a character who has flaws. Like, that maybe they're intentional. Maybe they're intentional character flaws. But I think the way that May has lied to Kentaro on multiple occasions about things that don't deserve to be lied about. Like, for instance, digging into the Monarch files without Kentaro being there, I felt was an invasion of Kentaro's privacy. And she lied to him about it, and I had a problem with that, but I still like the character. I think she's fun. Romo, I know who you're talking about. Yes, it did, Mr. Milkman. Unfortunately, it did. Kate isn't a bad character. She is a bad person or hurt person. I don't think she's a bad person at all. Kate? What has Kate done that's bad? Kate hangs up on her mom, and I don't like that she's rude. But she's a good person, and I really, really love her in episodes 2 and 3. I thought she really, really was only I thought that episode 1 introduced the character on a bad note. I don't understand why they introduced the character on a down. Because Kate shows up in episode 1, and she's rude to her mom multiple times. And then she's rude to Kentaro and to Emiko. And I did not like that. And then she's fine, because there are bigger things at play than being petty. Oh, Marco, your comment just killed me. Where was that? Where did he say it? He said, like, somewhere in here. I can't find it. He said, "I'm starting to understand why Kentaro took a break from May." No kidding, man. I can understand your opinion on the Kraken design. For me, I like it due to its uniqueness. I just don't like the whiskers. That's fair enough. It certainly has, I would say, the most unique design of all of the Titans in the MonsterVerse. I just thought that with Nakika existing, already called the Kraken in the MonsterVerse, not that the showrunner of the show would know that, I felt like Nakika, another colorful monster, has a better design than the Kraken. I felt like that was a more MonsterVerse-y design. I don't like what we wound up with the Kraken. I thought it looked like totally didn't fit the universe, I felt. It looked very cartoon. Felt very Saturday morning cartoon to me. And did not feel very MonsterVerse to me. And that's the thing that I don't get, is because, like, I feel like the Skull Island anime a lot of the time was trying to overcompensate, make things silly, make the characters silly, add children in the leads, give the monsters flashy, colorful designs. But why? Because kids love the MonsterVerse. They love Godzilla vs. Kong. They love King of the Monsters. Like, kids freaking eat this stuff up. So why would you feel the need to break what's already fixed? Like, you can just make your monsters look like MonsterVerse monsters, and kids are going to think they're cool because they're monsters, not because of the color. When you saw the movie, did you get 40 seats feeling? Did you get 40 seats feeling that shake the seats when he came on screen? Chris, yes. When I saw the movie, and you're talking about -1. When I saw -1 in 4D, the seat I was in would throw you around. The seat was on a pedestal. It would shake and teeter and throw you around when, yeah, pretty much whenever Godzilla was on screen. I mean, it did it some other times too. Like when you're on the boat, occasionally the seat would be rocking with the water. They didn't do that too much because they didn't want to make people motion sick. But yeah, the seats were moving. What's more likely for a second season? What's more likely for a second season to happen first? Skull Island or Singular Point? Guys with the Singular Point. It's gone. It's done. I love Godzilla Singular Point. It is one of my favorite pieces of Godzilla media. I'm an enormous fan. I want to see more Singular Point very badly. Yeah, Saturn Dust. Kids love dismemberment. That's why they put a ton of it in the Skull Island anime. I love Singular Point. I really, really wanted a Singular Point Season 2. It's been years since Season 1. There's been no development on a Season 2. I know some reasons why that I won't get into because it's not my place to say. That's stuff that 10 years from now will be made public. There's still a possibility that we could get a Season 2. Things would need to change for that to happen. The show would need to basically become... Big changes would need to occur for that to happen. And I don't think they're gonna. I don't think they're gonna because I think Toho's gonna try and invest in other projects. I think they're gonna try and do another rebooted anime. Something else. Maybe they do Singular Point Season 2. But like I said, some things would have to change. For that to happen. It is kind of odd that they randomly dropped pop vinyls for Singular Point. That's a good point. But I think it was just more because the Godzilla brand is so successful right now, and that was something that Funko hadn't capitalized on. I'm sure we'll get -1 Funkos in a little bit too. Well, 2 Paleo, fair enough. Like I said, there very well could be a Singular Point Season 2. But things behind the scenes would need to change for that to happen. Of all of the kaiju toku anime, only Pacific Rim and Ultraman got multiple seasons as far as we know. It's crazy that Pacific Rim got multiple seasons. That was just because they greenlit them right away. That show was not going to get a second season otherwise. Skull Island will get a second season, I think. There's like a 70% chance we'll get a second season of Skull Island. Oh, interesting, Childish. That is very interesting. Have you read the Godzilla vs. Justice League comic? I have not. I have not because I haven't been to the comic shop in a minute. I've been to the comic shop since for like 3 months now, so I haven't gotten any of them. Adam Wingard said that now in the Hollow Earth, Kong is rejuvenated and de-aged. Hopefully he stays on that word. No way, Hassan. Literally find me the link. I don't believe that. Source that. You can't just state that without sourcing. I don't think Adam Wingard ever said that. I have never heard Adam Wingard say that. Kong Skull Island was so good. It's the best movie in the MonsterVerse by far. What do you think of the Singular Point Mechagodzilla design? It's one of my favorite Mechagodzilla designs. We are like wildly off topic now, but Singular Point's Mechagodzilla I like. That was cool. I've only met one Mechagodzilla design I dislike, and that's the one in the 90s. I even like the anime trilogy Mechagodzilla. The Toho Kaiju stand out like a sore thumb in the MonsterVerse OCs. Compared to the MonsterVerse OCs, the MonsterVerse Kaiju are over-designed with inner mouths, weird appendages. You know what I think? I think the MonsterVerse has kind of weakened the value of monsters. There's just too many of them, personally. I think monsters are more interesting when they're a rare breed, not when there's 100 billion of them. I get that they want to make a new monster per movie, and that's fine. I just think they're doing too much. They're actually getting me to the point where I'm starting to slowly fall back in line with the Toho fans, where I want Toho monsters, because we're getting to the point where it's like too many monsters where they mean nothing now. And unless we keep, like, King of the Monsters introduced 17 monsters, why do we have to introduce more than that? Why can't we just follow up on those guys, find out what those guys are? We haven't seen most of those guys, and we barely got to see some of the ones that showed up on screen. We barely got to see them, like Behemoth or Scylla. Like, do a movie with those guys. I just think there's too many monsters, and the Hollow Earth is going to have a million monsters because it'll be monsters on monsters on monsters, and it weakens the value of monsters, makes them less special, makes them less interesting, makes like your Rodans, like Rodan means nothing. Rodan's just a big bird now, whereas he used to be like the god of the sky. So I just think they need to focus on the monsters that have been invented, develop those guys. Because otherwise, just too much monsters, I feel. Legacy of Monsters does it right, though. Let me also clarify, what I really love about Legacy of Monsters is how small they are. I know that they called the guy whose name I've forgotten again, Frostvark. Is that what his name is? Frostvark? It's kind of a stupid name if that is his name. I think that is his name, but it's kind of stupid in a good way. Feels very, again, very Showa to me. I kind of like it. Same way that Ion Dragon feels very Gamera to me, which I also think is fun. It's kind of a stupid name, but I think it's fun. But a lot of the names are kind of stupid, so it's fine. But anyways, sorry, I keep getting distracted by the chat. Frostbark slander will not be will not stand. Sorry. Anyways, my point. What I really like about Legacy of Monsters is that the monsters are on a smaller scale. I know that they accidentally, it seems, called the Frostvark a Titan. I don't think it is a Titan, because to be a Titan you need a certain level of scale, not just in terms of your size, but in terms of your reach. It seems that Titans are typically given the Titan name whenever they can have a global reach. And it seems that the Frostvark does not. Maybe he can grow into something with a global reach. Maybe that's why he's a Titan. But that tends to be, it's like status in the food chain ultimately determines what is and is not a Titan. Mother Longlegs are not Titans. Even the Queen Mother Longleg is not a Titan. Assuming that thing's canon. So it's like typically a Titan would be something that has a bit bigger scale in terms of the food chain. And what I really like about it is that Legacy of Monsters introduces us to smaller monsters, because you can have a bunch of smaller monsters. I really like the idea that cryptids exist in the MonsterVerse, for instance. I really like that the Ion Dragon was like 50 feet tall, or however tall it was. I really like that the Frostvark is like 30 feet tall. I like that stuff because it makes it so that monsters are special, so that Titans are special. The monsters aren't, I guess. The monsters are all over the place, but the Titans are special. Godzilla is special because he's so huge and there's only one of him and that kind of deal. But I feel where they're headed with the movies, because action figures, is a million monsters all over the place doing monster stuff. I don't like it because it weakens the value of the monsters. If there was only 17 and counting, they say 17 and counting. If there was only 17 left, and now every time a monster dies, they become that much more rare, and then when you start to discover more after that, and you get some more Toho monsters, then it becomes interesting again. Or you create a monster, like a Biolante or a Destroya, then it becomes interesting again. But I feel like the MonsterVerse kind of overplayed its hand a little bit. In a lot of regards. That's kind of the summation of my thoughts on this stream. I feel like the MonsterVerse has kind of overplayed its hand in a lot of areas. Focus on the lineage of Chen's family would be a good fit for another scene of Monarch, wouldn't it? More tethers to the Monarch that we know would be good for more seasons of Monarch. I would love to see Randa interact with some of the Chen family members, especially because he's got that whole myth is our compass type speech in episode 2, which goes just in line with Chen from King of the Monsters. And she says that was passed down through her family. So that'd be a really interesting crossover that I'd really love to see. Fair enough, Milkman. We each have our own thing that we're into. I wish Legacy of Monsters dived into Monsters' impact more, like the radiation sickness and new diseases and such. Me too, Ethan. Me too. But that's a little too deep of world building that I don't think we're gonna see in the MonsterVerse, unless some sort of leadership change occurs. We really start to dig in deep to the stuff that's already there. I just wish we got to see the other 10 Titans for this show. Me too. I wish that Legacy of Monsters dealt a little more with Monarch discovering the monsters in hibernation, but there's always the chance that future seasons could do that, where they discover the 17 and counting. Could be interesting if the season ends with some of our characters like Kentaro choosing to join Monarch while Kate chooses to reject it. Or rather, more interestingly, if Kate chose to join Monarch against all lot, like that's her story arc, is going from someone who hates Monarch to someone who's willingly joining it, whereas Kentaro rejects that side of his family. That could be interesting as well. But it would be interesting if the next season of the show dealt with more of the monarchy stuff that we're aware of and we want to see unpacked. With overplaying their hand, I think they basically treated like Godzilla vs. Kong like their last movie and went all out, but it made bank, so now they want more. I think you're right. I think that they were kind of... I know for a fact, I've known since 2019 that they had other movies in development. I know what the other 2 movies that were originally going to happen were, that are now in one movie, Godzilla X Kong. But I know they had those ideas, but they weren't actively developing them. And so I think that they did kind of just throw everything into Godzilla vs. Kong, thinking that this is our last shot. Let's do it. Sad because Peter Jackson fleshed out his Skull Island, and he only had one movie. They have entire movies to properly do it. Adam, you're absolutely right, and that just comes down to ultimately how much care and attention to detail does your filmmaker have. The MonsterVerse may generally know the ecosystem of Skull Island because they've got... I don't care what Dangerville said. I want to know where Adam Wingard said that. Dangerville saying that means nothing. I want to see the link where Adam Wingard said that. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah. Yeah, it just comes down to the commitment of your filmmaker. With a filmmaker like Peter Jackson, he put tons of care into it. Legendary's mythology team claims that they have kept track of the ecosystem of the MonsterVerse, but does that really mean anything with all the continuity errors? Not really. And sure, they might know the ecosystem of Skull Island, which is nice. I know that they put a lot of work into that for the Kong Skull Island movie, but I want to see more. I want to see it. I want to see it matter. And I feel like it doesn't, because I feel like they will change it however they want, depending on what we're looking at in the moment. Because what looks coolest is going to be what they go with. Discovering Ghidorah in Antarctica would be a good cliffhanger. Not in this season, because this is 2015 and that happens in 2016. And I'm going to stick to the continuity because it matters and I know it. And if I know it, they should know it. Hire me, Legendary. Hire me. I know it better. But I'd love to see that in a future season. Second Monarch season would take a couple years to come out, wouldn't it? Or have they already greenlit one? I think that they have ideas for it. I don't think it's greenlit. I don't think it's greenlit. Maybe it is, and we just don't know. I don't think it is. But it would take at least a year, especially with the writer strikes and the actors strikes slowing everything down. Who do you want to direct a Godzilla movie the most, besides yourself, of course? Well, me, of course. I personally would like to see a John Carpenter movie. I think John Carpenter's Godzilla, that's actually one I've thought of a lot. I think that'd be great. But after -1, I'd love to see Steven Spielberg's take on Godzilla. And I want some classic Spielberg, Jurassic Park and Jaws era, Close Encounters era Spielberg to do Godzilla. That's what I want. But John Carpenter as well. I just don't think he would because he's kind of retired, it seems. But yes, those two directors are absolutely big choices of mine. How do the humans meet Titans if they weren't underground to feed? Because originally if they went underground to feed, because the Titans didn't go underground until after humans had already been existing. We don't really understand. Well, according to the Godzilla 2014 movie, that's okay. Now we're getting into more continuity errors, because of course we freaking are. If you want to talk Godzilla 2014, Serizawa was under the impression that Godzilla and the monsters burrowed underground millions of years ago to avoid radiation depletion on the surface level. Then we're later told in King of the Monsters, which isn't the biggest deal, in Kong Skull Island, that monsters have been walking around on the surface for a while. It just, at some point in the past, they burrowed underground after humans have been around. That's not a big deal. It just means Serizawa's theory was wrong. So it's not a big continuity error or anything. It's just a revision. That's an instance of a lore revision, a retcon, that still works. Because it didn't break the universe by doing that. It didn't break a scene. It didn't compromise anything by doing that. There you go. Tarantino Godzilla movie? No, thank you. I don't think his tastes fit with Godzilla personally. I'd pay good money for a Michael Bay Godzilla movie. Well, it would certainly look interesting, and I wouldn't like it. Where did you get your shirt at? This was sold back in the year 2014 at Target. That's where I got the shirt at. Christopher Nolan Godzilla movie, I wouldn't be into. Christopher Nolan doesn't want to do special effects films like that. I mean, he's a practical guy. And of course, you can do Godzilla practically, as they did for decades. But I don't think he would want to do it like that. I don't think Christopher Nolan is the fit for Godzilla. Guillermo del Toro, on the other hand, would make a very interesting Godzilla movie. I'd be very cool to see del Toro's Godzilla. But how did humans survive if there wasn't enough radiation for kaiju to live? I'm assuming what it means is just that kaiju went underground to get radiation and then popped back up and then went back underground and then popped back up. But also, that whole idea of the Titans needing to burrow for radiation doesn't hold up for every single Titan, because Titans like Methuselah and Scylla were able to awaken from the surface without needing radiation. Meanwhile, a Titan like Rodan moved into a volcano so that he could soak in the radiation coming up from the core of the Earth. That's why Rodan was in a volcano. That's also why Ghidorah can regrow his head on the volcano, is because that's where the radiation was soaking up from. So Ghidorah hopped on that volcano to soak in the radiation, according to the novelization, which is probably not canon. I don't know if Peter Jackson's a Godzilla guy. I would never want Zack Snyder to touch a Godzilla film, because that would bring his fan base onto the Godzilla side of things, and that fan base needs to stay as far away from anyone else as possible. Yeah, Noob Master. Godzilla Awakening does feature sentient sailboats. It sure does. Yucky stuff. What a comic book. What core? What lava? There's no core. Well, there's something in between the crust and the core. There's in this case the core is hollow, but there's something between it, and we're told it's lava. I agree. We do need a Michael Dougherty Godzilla film. I'm all for Dougherty's return. I just hope the script goes under some more revisions this time. Oh, a Godzilla versus Justice League animated film would be great, Fox. That's a great pitch. Yeah, I guess Saturn Dusk. I don't think they put that much thought into it. It's pretty similar to what Graham said about the Titans. Nathan Lynn said as well, Titans like Kong eventually return to their evolutionary source and and finally be sustained by the energy source. I mean, that's not entirely what Nathan Lynn was saying. He was saying that Titans have a homing beacon much like pigeons in which they know how to return home if needed. But there was no need for like Kong to return home, for instance, and Scylla and Behemoth and Methuselah had to be put to sleep by Godzilla. I would really like to see Gargantua's make it into the MonsterVerse. Me too, Apex. Me too. Eli, that's a good pitch too. I'd love to see the Marvel comic Godzilla adapted into a cartoon. If you could do a merchandise crossover between Godzilla and another franchise, what would you make? Merchandise? I don't have an answer to that. Merchandise? What merchandise would I make? None. I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question. What's a good toy for Godzilla to cross over with? I don't know, because you can just buy two separate toys and have them cross over anyways. I think if Michael Dougherty makes another movie, it should be focused on Godzilla's rival with Ghidorah. I don't want to, no more Ghidorah. Since he stated he wants to make the movie take place in the past. Well, I guess if you're in the past, maybe, but I personally don't think going that far into the past would be interesting. I think you've gone too far back to where you're going to lose a lot of audiences, including me. I don't care about it. Pretty much once you surpass 1933, I'm not interested in history. I don't care about World War One. Is sort of interesting to learn about, but it's mostly interesting to learn about through the lens of how it led to bigger conflicts to come. I do like to learn about world history. I'm a big fan of learning about history, but mostly starting after World War One. I want to go back to medieval times with Godzilla, maybe for a flashback or for like a one-off episode of a show. But not for a movie. That'd bore me. I was gonna say the same thing, Godzilla Transformers Titan Tech, but car. I was thinking the same thing, that Godzilla also already basically crossed over with Transformers with the stupid Titan Techs. All right. Well, I think I'm gonna end it here, guys. It's been long enough. I've streamed for over an hour longer than I originally thought I would. I really thought this would be like a 30-minute-ish stream. Maybe I'll try and hop on and do shorter streams over time when these episodes drop. Maybe. It's just going to kind of depend on my schedule and when each episode drops, kind of week to week. It's going to depend on what I'm up to. But I would like to hop on and do more Monarch streams. Maybe this show will give us more to bite onto and speculate about. I did take some wild swings in this live stream about where I think the show is headed. So maybe I'll get some of those predictions right. I do have some theory videos on Legacy of Monsters coming out. My computer's really busted for some reason at the moment and is not willing to render those. So I guess I'll see if I get to post them tomorrow. They're done. They just are not coming off the editing software. So I guess we'll see if I can post them. But hopefully I should have a theory video for Legacy of Monsters Episode 4 coming out tomorrow. Otherwise, go check out my video on Episode 3, the review for Episode 3. I go much more in depth in that episode than I even did in this live stream. Also, check out the Patreon. And big shout out to my patrons like Saturn Dusk I see in here. And I know we had some other patrons pop in earlier. Yeah, go check out the Patreon, link in the description below. I really appreciate all the support I get through the Patreon. And it's kind of the reason I was able to take such a big break from my jobs so that I could focus on all this content that I've been trying to do lately with -1 and Japan and now Monarch, it's just been such a crazy back to back that I really appreciate all the support I can get and making sure I can keep covering this stuff with you guys. So thanks for all the support, guys. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody who celebrates Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to you. For those of you who don't, I hope you have a great day tomorrow. And hopefully I'll see you guys within the next couple weeks or so, depending on what we're talking about. I'll probably hop on another stream for -1 in the next couple days or weeks or something. I might do one before the movie comes out. I might do one after the movie comes out. I don't totally know yet. But yeah, thank you guys all for checking the stream out. I really appreciate it, and I've had a fun time talking with you guys. Until next time, you know, you guys know that thing. I'm gonna take a drink and then I'm gonna give that another shot. All right, bye bye everybody. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you guys next time for the next one. D-Man out.